Not too long ago, a new FNaF game dropped. It was based off of a book, it's a free-roam puzzle game, and it involves a main antagonist that changes its form based on what it needs to do. Is anybody getting deja vu? I kid. Last week, Secret of the Mimic came out, and has been met with mostly glowing reviews. Now, knowing me, and probably from the title, you know that I'm not hopping on this bandwagon, because I always have something bad to say. But truth be told, I really do like this game. I'm gonna talk about some shit that really pissed me off when I played it, but nevertheless, the game still left me wanting to go back, wanting to play more, wanting to see what the endings were, and that tells me that this game did something right. So, before you feel like I'm hating just to hate, everything I'm going to talk about here is what I think brings the game down and keeps it from being one of the best games in the series. If anything, I want these criticisms to be ironed out so the next game can be even better. Without further ado, let's jump into it. The first thing that I want to mention is the menu and save system. It's a bit weird. When you open the game, you get a title screen, followed by a save select, followed by another title screen. The system works, but it's just a little weird to get two title screens. I also find it annoying that you have to replay the entire game to get a different ending. Security Breach, for all its problems, had one thing that was really good, and that was that after you got to the end of the game, you could go back to that point and get all the other endings. For this game, you have to play through the entire thing again just to get something new. So that's really annoying. Now, moving on to the meat of the video, what I want to take note of is the way that the game is. I took notice from the very first trailer that this game was going to be more of a puzzle game than any of the ones that came before it, and that made me very excited. See, when I did my FNaF retrospective, I brought up a fan game called The Glitched Attraction, where I said, compare this to a fan game called The Glitched Attraction. It's relatively short with only 6 levels, although a couple of them are split into sections, so I'd say it's more like 8. Each level is a different puzzle, which also gives you mechanics to deal with the animatronics. It takes the free roam aspect of Security Breach and combines it with the need to keep track of your surroundings like the original games. A lot of the fandom right now is torn between saying that Secret of the Mimic sucks because it's too different from how the series started, and thinking that if any more point-and-click survival games were made, the series would die. I'm in the middle. I think the solution is to do a mix of both. Help Wanted 1 or 2 were so successful because they integrated the sit and survive formula into something more. Now, to be fair, Help Wanted 1 and 2 are elevated by the fact that they're mostly just VR recreations of the sit and survive games, but if you were to take advantage of the 3D aspects of that, you could create a game where you balance puzzles with the mechanics of a classic sit and survive FNaF game. To break this down, I want to look at 2 examples. First is the Security Breach FNaF recreation. To get this security badge, Gregory is trapped inside of the security room and has to fend himself off from Roxy and Monty. This segment is not very good for multiple reasons. One of which is that if you somehow manage to die, some of the cameras vanish, so that's great. But even if you don't die, you have to run between the 2 doors to close them, and that's the only amount of gameplay that you're going to get out of this. Most of the time, you don't need the cameras, because you can just look through the doors to see if the animatronics are there. But, if you destroyed Roxy before doing this, she won't attack you, meaning that Monty is the only threat. So now, the limited gameplay you had of running between the 2 doors is gone, because you can stand at Monty's door for the entire 3 minutes. So, you got a buggy mess which only serves to be an homage to classic FNaF, but bad. Compare that to The Glitched Attraction, which is everything I want out of a FNaF game. Most of the levels are perfect, with the exception of the one where you have to kite Ennard. Every other level is a mix of monitoring mechanics while going around and managing other puzzles. Level 1 has you keeping track of Freddles, Nightmare Balloon Boy, Nightmare Ione, and Nightmare Fredbear, each attacking you in different ways. Meanwhile, you have to find 2 keys, finish this puzzle, unhook the wood, and crawl to the next level. Level 2 has you sneaking around Toy Chica to find a code before you need to find a bunch of gears to power a door. Once you get the code, Freddy wakes up and you need to wind his music box while also avoiding Chica and Mangle and finding the gears. This is essentially what happens in Secret of the Mimic minus the music box, so make of that what you will. Level 3 has you playing a mini-game while also tracking Springtrap and Dreadbear. Level 4 has you doing various different puzzles to build Circus Baby, while also having to keep track of Funtime Freddy, Foxy, and Ballora as they attack you in different ways. Level 6 has you playing another minigame while keeping track of Afton, Scrap Baby, and Molten Freddy. As you can see, each level, except for this bullshit, has you keeping track of at least 3 different threats while doing some other task. Coming back to the actual point of the video, when I saw that Secret of the Mimic was going to be a puzzle game, I was really excited. I thought that it was going to take some inspiration from the glitched attraction and be the best of both eras of FNaF. But then I played the game, and it was just Poppy Playtime, but with a much better design, replayability, lore, and open world. Now, before you come at me with pitchforks and vitriol, let me explain. I've seen a lot of people have different opinions on this, and I'm sort of in between with this as well. A criticism that I've seen thrown at this game is that it's just a reskinned Poppy Playtime, which is something that a lot of the fandom agrees with, and a lot of the fandom fights against, with various degrees of validity. Some people argue that this game has vast improvements over Poppy, like better atmosphere, map design, character models, and it encourages you to explore different areas and find all the collectibles. I agree with that. However, some people defend it with sarcasm, saying things like, oh yes, FNaF is definitely copying the game that's entirely based off of other horror games. When I compare this game to Poppy Playtime, I'm not saying that Poppy is something that is completely original and had never been done before. I am saying that this game very clearly took a lot of the mechanics that Poppy used, whether they came from other horror games or not. It also has a lot of sequences that are very reminiscent of what you see in the 4 Poppy chapters. When it comes down to it, this game and Poppy Playtime have a lot of similarities, and that wouldn't be a bad thing if Secret of the Mimic did it better. But it almost always does it worse. So, let me point out just a few examples of what I personally think is very similar to Poppy Playtime. The game's progression system and main gimmick is basically exactly the same. In Poppy Playtime, you get the grab pack and upgrade it, allowing you to do various puzzles and open various sections of Playtime Go. In Secret of the Mimic, you have the Data Diver, a device that you upgrade throughout the game, allowing you to do various puzzles and access various parts of the factory. Oh wow, I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Let's keep going. Every chase sequence feels very similar to what I've grown to expect from the Poppy games. 3 chases in particular remind me a lot of the Poppy chase formula. In case you don't know, the chase formula from those games is to show you a path and then block it as you're about to go through it, forcing you to quickly pivot to another path. Usually, if you're not expecting it, it gets you killed on your first attempt. This is especially evident during the Big Top chase sequence, where there are multiple doors and open areas to choose from, but Big Top crushes those pathways and forces you down a specific one. Now again, I'm not saying that Poppy Playtime pioneered this technique, but when it's something that happens in every single one of their chase sequences, it's not hard to notice when FNaF does the exact same thing. But then, there's also the cardboard cutouts of the various mascots, the cassette tapes around the facility with lore reveals, shutting doors into multiple animatronics, throwing them into molten metal, mini animatronics chasing you and blocking off pathways during chases, and puzzles that revolve around power and cranes. On their own, each of these may just be a coincidence, because yeah, these gimmicks and cliches can be seen in a lot of horror games, but altogether, the same gimmick, the same style, deaths, cutouts, chases, it feels a bit too reminiscent of Poppy Playtime, probably because they felt it was a safe style to emulate to make something that the general audience would like. I'm not even necessarily saying that this is a bad thing, I just want more from it. To tie it back to what I said earlier, if the game had you balancing these things with different mechanics that you had to keep track of, it would have been enough to take what works and elevate it. As it is though, it just feels bland. Now, at the start of that tangent, I said that those aspects makes the game feel like Poppy Playtime, but worse. Let me touch on that a bit more. See, my biggest excitement going into this game was that it was a puzzle game. Puzzle games are my favorite. I love escape rooms, I loved Amanda the Adventurer, that series has been great so far. I love Papers, Please, Please Don't Touch Anything, Your Turn to Die, and I tend to gravitate toward horror games that involve puzzles. But Secret of the Mimic has some really disappointing puzzles, because most of the gameplay revolves around running and hiding from the Mimic. You have these big areas, but most of the time you just have to distract it and run to your objective. Now, the puzzles range from okay to downright horrendous. The best one is finding a code to a birthday room, which is actually a multi-step process. See, for each door that has a keypad, there is a security screen that will show you where you need to look for the code. The main security room shows you the code for this door, and yada yada. So, to get this collectible, you need to crawl through a vent that gets you to this screen, which shows a black and white image feed of a bunch of numbered blocks. If you're like me, you would have no idea what the code is, because there are a lot of numbers here. But, to get to this point, you had to go through the playroom, which passes by this series of blocks. The code is highlighted in green, something you wouldn't see through the monitor. This is a great puzzle, to be honest. It makes a lot of sense, but is also something you might overlook initially. Another great one is the one to get into David's party room. You collect all the mail and have to work out the changes to the code to figure out what the correct combination is. Again, great. But then, there are the power puzzles and the crane puzzles. It's mid, unbelievably mid. The crane puzzles are fine, I guess. I had more fun with those, figuring out how to get to the gift boxes rather than making it to my objective. But the power puzzles are just not fun. You do them in almost every major room. Sometimes they try to crank up the difficulty by making you find the various pieces of the puzzle, but that doesn't make it harder, it just makes it more annoying. And the most egregious offender of this one is the Big Top showroom, where every time you play a minigame, you have to sneak around Big Top and go do the power puzzle again. The first time I played, I noticed a security feed that showed a code through a series of numbered mannequins. I thought that I would have to use that code to fix Big Top during this sequence, and that kept getting me killed. But I thought that had to be it, because why else do these mannequins have glowing numbers on them? Then, at one point, I gave up and tried the power puzzle again, and it worked. I thought I had cheesed it, to be honest, but no, that's the solution. To beat this segment, you have to do the exact same puzzle 4 times in a row. Where's the fun in that? I also almost forgot about the elevator maintenance, which you have to do 3 times. 2 of those 3 times, it's exactly the same, and the 3rd time, it's only slightly different. It also doesn't help that you have to do the maintenance twice in a row in the elevator after the Nurse Dolly chase. But those are acceptable puzzles. I would have no problem with those if there were some other puzzle types, or if you had to do them while balancing other mechanics. However, there is one segment of the game that I have a massive gripe with, and that's the Tiger Rock area. This is the single most poorly designed segment of any FNaF game, and that's including Security Breach, and the soft lock at the end of Into the Pit. I wish I had the footage of my first time playing it, because I was genuinely crashing out. See, you go into this pitch black room where there are some spotlights that illuminate certain areas, and as you're here, you're getting hunted by a tiger suit, which seems to be David's spirit. The intention seems to be that if you're in a light, you won't die, and you get out of the room by following the light sources. But the mechanics are so fucking wonky, and I can't even properly explain it. If you're in the light, you die. In the dark, you die. Look at the tiger, die. Ignore it, you die. And if you happen to make it past the first segment, be ready to do it another 2 times. In the off time, you carry a star lamp through some corridors, and there's a chance that the tiger will spawn in front of you and insta-kill you, even if you're following the right path. The idea behind this segment is so poorly conveyed that I couldn't figure out how I was supposed to approach it during my first playthrough. I thought it might have been a Weeping Angel mechanic, because sometimes, while running to the next light, you can hear the tiger spawning behind you and getting faster and faster. But no, it's not a Weeping Angel. But also, the lights seem to spawn and despawn almost randomly. Half the time, I don't know where to go, and I'm standing around waiting for another light to spawn before I ultimately end up dying. I think that this is the pinnacle of what the game does wrong. You're just wandering around, surviving through some questionable mechanics, not having a clear path or goal, and dying due to the lack of clarity. Otherwise, I think the game is pretty fun. When I did my first ending, I was running on rage because of the Tiger Rock section, so when I got to the underground pizzeria display, I was very confused and angry. But now, I think this section is really cool. I love seeing the prototypes of Chica, Foxy, Bonnie, as well as our first look at the Fredbear and Spring Bonnie suits. You get some clarification about mixes from Ruin, revealing what the acronym stands for, and that the original Mimic program, which eventually becomes Mixes, is actually Edwin's attempt at bringing his wife back after she died. I think the lore reveals are pretty interesting, albeit a little reminiscent of what has come before it, and I do think it's a fun game. Truth be told, the mechanics and whatnot aren't the only criteria for what makes a game fun. I also judge it based on how much I enjoy playing it and how much I want to play it again. Even with everything I said about this game, I still really wanted to play it. I'd just be waiting for my next opportunity to play. I really wanted to find all the collectibles, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I also got the Dead by Daylight Springtrap DLC. It's very fun. I'm kinda goated at Springtrap. Anyways, I'm only really making this video because I genuinely think Steel Wool is going in the right direction. It just needs to be its own thing instead of something else. Here's the thing. There's this game I played called Omori. It takes a lot of inspiration from Undertale, which in itself takes a lot of inspiration from Earthbound. However, while you can see the inspiration, there isn't really anything that is straight up copied. Each game has its own unique mechanics, story, characters, environment, and while Secret of the Mimic doesn't directly copy any characters or story beats, it clearly takes its gameplay from Poppy Playtime. Taking inspiration is fine as long as you add onto it, and that is what this series desperately needs. It needs to adhere to its own identity, not what happened to gain traction. If I want to play Poppy Playtime, I will. I don't need a different series to do that for me. I'm not even saying that the games need to go back to the point-and-click era. I'm just saying that FNaF has an identity that works really well even in 3D environments. So use it! Stop trying to be something else just because it got popular recently. And for the love of God, get rid of the dumbass security robot mechanics.
No. Wait. Wait.